Hello and welcome to this 10-minute quilter 10-minute tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at making these really cute little flexi purse pouches. These are great for storing little reels of cotton or your clips or something like that, or you could even use it as a little purse. You could make it this size, or you could even elongate it slightly and make it as a glasses case if you wanted to. You're going to need a main fabric, 2 pieces measuring 4 3/4 by 6 1/4, 2 lining pieces, the same measurements, and 2 pieces of interfacing. I'm using the fusible wadding, which has got a really knobbly side on this side and a smooth side on this. The knobbly side is the bit that sticks to your fabric. You're also going to need some scissors, a pencil, something to push your corners through, a measuring ruler, and also your sewing machine. We're going to start with our main fabric pieces and our interfacing, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to place the fusible side onto the wrong side of my fabric, and I'm going to iron it in place. Make sure you iron from this side, not this way, because if you iron on this side it's just going to melt all of your wadding and it will make a horrible mess on your iron. So fuse those to both pieces. I'm now going to take these 2 pieces of fabric and I'm going to place them right sides together, matching them up. I'm going to go from the top edge and I'm going to use my ruler and I'm going to make a little mark in the seam allowance just there, 2.5 inches down, like so. I'm now going to take that to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew from this point here down, lift and pivot, across, lift and pivot, and back up to this second mark just here, using 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to do reinforcing stitches at the beginning and the end. And there's my sewn piece. I'm now going to clip those corners, just to ease a little bit of the bulk off of that, and I'm then going to turn this round so it is now right side out, and I can then use my little prodder to just push out those corners. Like so. I can then put this to one side until we need it later. So I'm now going to take my lining pieces and I'm going to place them right sides together. I know I'm using a plane so you can't really see which is the right side, but I'm going to take my ruler and once again I'm going to measure down 2.5 inches from the top, and I'm going to make a little mark in the seam allowance just like that. And I'm now going to sew again, starting here, coming down to the bottom, but this time I'm going to leave myself a little turning gap in the bottom of my lining so that I can turn things through at a later stage. I'll then complete the stitching back up to that second mark. And there you can see that I've stitched around the bottom part. And I'm now going to clip those corners like I did previously, but this time I'm going to leave this piece with the right side out. I'm now going to take my main bag fabric again and I'm going to insert this inside my lining piece so that it is now right sides together. And what I would like is for my top bits up here to match up nice and neatly. We're now going to sew each of these side flaps separately. So I'm going to deal with this one first of all, and I'm going to ease that fabric over to the side so that I can flatten the seam just here, and I'm going to put a pin in and I'm going to start sewing from where that stitching ends just there, and I'm going to stitch out across the top and then I'm going to have a little readjust, and I'm then going to stitch down that side again, making sure that this seam is flat. And there's my first one sewn. So as you can see, I've started stitching here, I've come round, and I've finished stitching on this side so that those lines of stitching match up. I'm now going to repeat that process for the other side. And there's my second side sewn again. So now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to clip those corners again, just to take a bit of the bulk out. I'm then going to turn my bag through that little hole that I left in the lining earlier. And I'm just going to ease it through carefully, like so. And I'm just going to push out each of those top sections as well. Nice and gently does it. And I'm going to use my little prodder just to push out those corners as best as I can. Once you've pushed them out and you're happy, again, push through carefully. Don't want to go through our stitches, but push them through so that they're nice, as best as you can. And there's my lining piece as well. Once you're happy with those bits, you can then think about closing up the bottom of your bag. Now, it's up to you. You could hand stitch that closed if you wanted to, but my personal preference is to just put that under the machine and just run a line of stitching across there. This is going to be tucked inside your bag anyway, so nobody's going to see it, but it depends on how much of a finish you want on your little pouch. And there's my little hole closed up, so I can now just tuck that inside my bag. I'm now going to take this to the iron and I'm going to give it a really nice press so that everything is nice and flat and looks neat and tidy. And there it is, all nicely neat and pressed. Now you have a decision to make. You can just make your little pouch and just fold over the casings and just have the main fabric on the outside, or you can fold the casing to the outside like that, and your lining then creates a little contrast to the top of your pouch. So it's up to you which way you would like to do it. I quite like the little contrast. This was one of the ladies in one of my current classes who came up with this idea, and it just seemed to look really nice. So I'm going to fold the casing to the outside to create that little bit of accent on it like that. So as you can see, you're going to fold over that top casing part, so it is about approximately an inch, but the main thing is that you want it to look nice and straight from the top. So I'm going to fold the back one out of the way, and I'm then going to edge stitch along there, close to that edge, to form a casing just in there. Now, I did promise you a little money saving hack, didn't I? You can, of course, buy these Flexi frames from your quilt shop, from Amazon, from eBay. When I checked in the shop yesterday, these were coming up at £3 a set. Or you could go to your local hardware shop and you can buy yourself a retractable tape measure like this. Now, this is a 5-metre one, and you can see, I think, that it is flexible. Now, you're probably wondering why it's got this on the end. This is because it normally comes with a little metal tag on the end, doesn't it? So that when you try and retract it, it doesn't disappear straight into your casing. So you need to take that off, but you also need to stop that from disappearing into the casing of your tape measure. So hopefully that little clip will do the job. Now, if it does disappear into it, I think it will unscrew, so you can take it out. But this is a 5 metre tape measure that I bought from the pound shop, although it cost me £1.50. Not sure how that works, but there we go. And you only need small sections of it, so you can see how much more cost effective this is going to be. And you need a pair of really rubbish scissors. Do not use your best fabric scissors for this because it will just ruin them. But you're going to just sort of roughly measure where you want it to be, and you can see how easily it clips through that with the scissors. Now, the thing that you have to remember is that this is now going to be quite sharp. So before you do anything, you want to just snip off those really sharp pointy edges, and you need to try and make sure that you find the little bits because they will fly all over the place. But just clip those off like that, and it will then insert into your casing much more easily than if you had the sharp edges. Now, we used one of these per side for this little one. I actually think that this is an extremely cheap tape measure, so I would suggest perhaps spending a little bit more and getting a better quality one. But we also found that if we doubled up, i.e. cut 2 per side and then inserted it, it gave us a better frame. So having cut my 2 pieces per side and rounded off the edges, I'm going to take my pouch, and the first thing I'm going to do is to stitch across this end to seal in this part. Now, there is a lot of fabric to go through, so do take your time. Let your machine do the work. If you find that your machine won't do it, then you could by all means stitch through that with a ladder stitch by hand just to close it up. Once that end is stitched up, you can then take your frames and insert it into the casing. And you want it with the curve on the outside. So just slide them in like that. Now they should fit in quite snugly. If you find that it's poking out like that, you're going to have to take it out and cut a little bit off just to bring it down. What you don't want to be doing is sewing through that tape measure. Ease it in, push it right to the end, and then you're going to again stitch it over the end to secure everything. And there it is, all stitched in. And I think it gives you a better clip with the doubled up one than it does with the single one, but I think a better quality tape measure would solve that. I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial. If you do have a go, please let me know in the comments down below. I hope it works for you. If you've enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up, won't you? And don't forget to subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks very much. Bye.